Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
They're polite. I mean, they just take the time for you.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
I like the Angels for what they've done for me.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching. Thanks as always to our producer, Jeff DeRoll. We're at Custer Hall on the campus of Fort Hays State University in the Docking Institute of Public Affairs. A recent survey of public universities in Kansas shows strong opposition to a law allowing guns on campus. That was the focus of the Docking Institute's latest survey, which we're talking with a senior at Fort Hays State University and one of the survey coordinators, Bethany Linneman. Bethany, I wanted to call you a coordinator because that'll give you a higher status with the director, Dr. Gary Brinker. So maybe that'll help your grade a little bit, hopefully. Bethany, you are a Phillipsburg native, right?
Yes, I am.
Phillipsburg High School?
Yes, and this is my senior year at Fort Hays State University.
And how did you get involved with the Docking Institute, Bethany?
Well, actually, my advisor, Dr. Brett Zollinger, he let me know of this opportunity that they were hiring, and so I went ahead and put my application in.
Have you done any kind of work like this before, survey work and stuff?
No, I have not, but throughout his classes, he talked about how he used to work here and that I should probably get into it and see if I like it.
And did you?
Yes, I do.
Bethany, you were kind of a person who was kind of on the front line, so to speak, in working with input from faculty and staff that had taken the survey and maybe hadn't completed it completely. Talk about that process you were involved in.
We sent out numerous surveys, and then some people would get into the survey and answer some of the questions, but didn't get through the whole thing, and it would say they've taken the whole survey. So they would go ahead and let us know, and I'd go into the system and reset it for them so that they could fully get all their answers in for the...
So you kind of walked them through the process then?
Yes, we would go and either reset it and delete their data that they already put in, or let them complete it if they didn't show that they completed each question.
Is this the first survey you've been involved in with the Docking Institute, Bethany? And how did you find out about Fort Hays State when you began your career here?
Well, I actually went to K-State for 2 years, and then I decided to transfer here for my last 2 years because it's closer to home, and I've heard it's a really great college.
You have family in Phillipsburg then?
Yes, all my family lives in Phillipsburg.
Brothers, sisters?
Yep, I have an older sister. She just graduated from Iowa. She went to K-State, but she moved up there, and she's going to be a teacher. And then I have a younger brother, which is just now going to Cloud, and he's running track there.
Ah, okay. What do you like about Fort Hays, Bethany?
Just the closeness of everything and the smaller classrooms. I really enjoyed that compared to the bigger classes I had at K-State. The one-on-one with the professors is a lot.
A lot of difference in the one-on-one in there. And the professors who are there, not just the student teachers.
Correct,
and
and
so
I
forth.
see a lot of that. I have learned a lot more going.
Terrific.
Yes.
And your career choice, have you made one yet?
I have not. I'm actually graduating in May, but I'm hoping that something pops up soon.
Well, I understand that you might be thinking about a little graduate work, huh?
Yes.
Perhaps in counseling?
Yes. I'm debating on if I want to go to grad school right now, but we'll see.
Well, I have it on good authority from a fairly knowledgeable director of the Docking Institute that they would like to keep you around if they could possibly do that.
Yeah.
So maybe there might be something in the works there you might want to explore, Bethany.
Right.
Well, congratulations on your work at the Docking Institute.
Thank you.
Your career at Fort Hays State, and we want to wish you the best in your chosen career, whether it's on to graduate school or counseling or whatever that may be. Bethany Linneman from Phillipsburg, a senior at Fort Hays State University and a part of the Docking Institute of Public Affairs recent survey on guns on campus. And we'll be talking with the director next on Community Connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
And the Angel Care nurse comes to see me once a week.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
Angel Care has helped to stay home.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
Welcome back to our Community Connection and the survey of public universities in Kansas showing strong opposition to laws allowing guns on campus. The director of the Docking Institute of Public Affairs at Fort Hays State University, Dr. Gary Brinker, joins us today to talk about the survey from the Docking Institute. A state law will make it legal to carry concealed weapons into campus buildings beginning in July of 2017. And to prepare for that change, the Docking Institute of Public Affairs at Fort Hays State University conducted a survey to gather opinions from faculty and staff at universities throughout the Kansas Board of Regents system. Dr. Brinker is going to tell us about that survey. And Dr. Brinker, let's begin, if we could, with the survey. We are focusing mainly on faculty and staff at the universities, correct?
That's correct. The Institute did do a separate survey of students as well, but that has just recently been released. The faculty, even though that was the first one that we did, after we finished the student one, the faculty senates quickly realized they wanted to do a similar study. And so we quickly did that one, and they released their results right away. So that's the results that we're going to be talking about today.
And this particular survey was actually done as a non-commissioned survey. In other words, it was just a very minimal charge to the other Regents universities, correct?
That's correct. We have a public affairs mission, and when we see a need for research for the public's safety and regard, we will generally do that either pro bono, or in this case we charge them a modest fee to help us cover mainly the software that we use, the survey software.
While we're talking about the individual breakdowns here, our producer Jeff Durall will have some slides up for you to see. Let's begin, if we might, with the overall picture that we get from this, Dr. Brinker.
Okay, yeah, the very first question that we asked, we feel, was the one that really got at the heart of the matter, where we asked respondents to give us their policy preference for guns, and we gave them three alternatives and asked us to say, you know, which of these three would you prefer? The first one was to amend the law so that guns are not allowed on campus as a permanent policy. They were also given the option of selecting keeping the current policy, which is basically an exemption that universities have. So a small percentage favored extending that exemption. And then we also gave them the option, of course, of changing the law to basically prohibit guns on campus.
And what's the breakout?
Well, overall, among the faculty and staff, and I should mention that Washburn University opted not to participate. So this is Fort Hays, Pittsburgh State, Kansas State University, Wichita State, KU, Emporia, and the KU Medical Center. And all of those combined, 70% of the faculty and staff of those universities said that they would prefer to permanently ban guns on campus. An additional 7% said to keep the exemption, keep the law in place, but keep the exemption for universities, allowing them to also ban guns. So 77% of our sample, which we had a very high response rate, and I should mention that because that hits right at the validity of the data.
I did want to ask you about that survey response for participants. Tell us about that.
Well, we, a lot of surveys, they sample. They draw a random sample, and you've got a margin of error when you do that. Since survey software is pretty cheap to use, and we wanted to give everybody a chance to participate, we basically surveyed everybody. Wichita State, they opted to do a sample because they kind of have a policy. They don't want to inundate their staff with surveys, so they actually drew a sample. But So there's virtually no margin of error here. We got a response rate of 54%, and I mean that's good for a telephone survey, and this is an online survey. Typically, response for online surveys, you get 20%. You're doing really well.
54%.
54%. So what this suggests to us is that this is a very important issue for faculty and staff, and they're all very interested in participating in what the final policy will be.
And it would seem, Dr. Brinker, sending a message to the Kansas legislature that the current policy is not applicable in a university setting.
Well,
is that a fair?
That's certainly the opinion, the majority opinion of faculty and staff. And students as well, because we're not really going to present those results, but I can say that the faculty and staff were a little bit more opposed to guns, but still a majority of the students as well tended to favor a gun-free campus.
Take us to the next part of the survey, would you?
Okay, before I go, and I think the audience can see the graph that we're talking about now. One of the most interesting parts or part of the results was the variation among the schools in support for guns on campus. And you can see from the chart that KU, Emporia, and the KU Medical Center tended to be the three schools that were consistently against guns on campus compared to the other schools.
By a large majority.
Exactly. For example, KU, 86% of the faculty at KU expressed opposition to guns, whereas only 69% of the Fort Hays State faculty staff.
And figuring in again, the blue that's indicated there is keeping the current ban policy in place.
The exemption for schools. Yes, exactly. And that was pretty consistent through all of our indicators. Whatever you ask about guns, we tended to see the same ordering of support or opposition to guns. And I was going to mention the student survey. It was the same thing. In other words, the KU and Emporia also tended to have the most highest percentage against guns on campus, and Fort Hays and Pittsburgh students also, like the faculty, were most likely to favor guns on campus. Not to the same degree. In other words, the faculty and staff overall were more opposed to guns on campus than the students.
Okay, all right.
The next graph, you can see this is where we ask about how people felt like guns on campus would affect safety. And actually we had almost half, 45% of the respondents said that they would feel safer, and 24% said that they would feel less safe. So actually, there was a sense that that people would feel to some degree safer if there were guns on campus. In other words, they were more likely to say that than say less safe.
Did that surprise you?
It did, because it kind of goes against the majority of opinions on campus.
And the next part of our survey?
Yeah, the next one is where we ask about whether, assuming guns were allowed on campus, would you favor your university expending the resources to install screening equipment? Because that is as the law is written, that is the only exception that you can make. In other words, the only way you can ban guns in buildings on campus after July of 2017 is if you install these screening equipments at every door of the building. So you can see over half of the respondents said, well, yes, if guns are allowed on campus, yes, I do want the university to install the screening equipment. About another 1/4 said that, well, it would depend on the cost. So some were concerned that the costs may detract from resources spent on the primary mission of the universities.
Now, by screening, would we mean metal detectors at each entrance, security at each entrance?
That was not spelled out in detail in the law. It just said adequate security measures, and I think there's a consensus that does mean both metal detecting equipment as well as personnel, at least one person there.
But those costs would be borne by the university then?
It's the cost. Another concern is the way that would disrupt the changing of classes, because right now we need 10 minutes for the students to move from one class to the other. If they had to wait in line at a screening equipment, that might add another 10 or 15 minutes to the time in. But so they would have to I would assume, rework the schedule, and there would be room for fewer courses to be taught during the day.
Well, and especially if you've got multiple entry points at a building, such as we've got at many of the buildings at Fort Hays State. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think, one of the options, if they did that, the only feasible way, I mean, I don't think they could afford, certainly at every single door that's open now, they would probably have to limit the number of entrances anyway.
Which would slow down the entry of students to the next class situation. Okay. What's next,
slow it
Dr.
down
Brinker?
drastically. We ask about how each type of category of person carrying guns would make you feel safety. And if the audience is now seeing the next graph, I think, and you could see that we ask about yourself. In other words, if you yourself carried guns, and this is the one, of course, that people said, well, yeah, if I carried guns, I would feel a little safer, at least relative to the others. People were not had too much a problem with faculty, but it was mainly the students. Other students carrying guns would make students feel less safe, and of course,
okay, that's the red part of the.
The red the red is much less safe, and the red and the orange together is less safe.
Okay, all right.
And another interesting one we asked the faculty and staff how guns on campus would affect their desire to want to work there. And this next graph shows that half indicated that they would be less likely to work at an institution that allowed guns on campus. Now, of course, this is what people say. We can't assume that if guns are on campus, half of the faculty and staff are going to quit. But I think this does suggest that it might make them maybe a little bit more likely to check and see what other jobs available are in other states without guns, or otherwise it could certainly affect your, it's a big change to pull up roots and move, but this could very easily affect your decision as to whether you come to Kansas to start your career. So this of course is a big concern on campus, and there's already some concerns with Kansas losing qualified teachers because of some of the policies that have been instituted. But this gun policy in particular, there's some concerns that would really scare away some talent that could be a real benefit to our institutions.
Yeah, adding another layer of restriction in education. Okay, next, Dr. Brinker.
Well, let's see. We've got this next one is, it shows where, this is talking about storage of handguns and shotguns. And this first one shows opinions on how much the respondents supported or opposed allowing weapons to be stored on campus. And this graph here is for one we're looking at now is for handguns, and it shows strong opposition for keeping handguns stored in any of the buildings on campus, other than perhaps locked vehicles. There's a little bit more support for that. And the strongest support, of course, was for storing all handguns in the campus safety offices. So very few people had a problem with that.
Okay.
And then with shotguns and rifles, it was pretty much the same way, just a little bit less overall opposition to shotguns and handguns.
All right.
I'm sorry, shotguns and rifles.
The Regents Council of Faculty Senate Presidents, in collaboration with the Regents University Support Staff Council, commissioned the Docking Institute to gather faculty and staff opinions and policy preferences regarding guns on campus. And the Faculty Senate, as you mentioned, Dr. Lori Cook Benjamin, Associate Professor, President of the Faculty Senate, Chair of the Council of Faculty Senate Presidents, quoted, "The survey's results clearly show a majority of our employees want to see the law amended so guns are not allowed on campus." And there was a specific area that I'd like for you to address also, and maybe you've got a slide on this, And that's how faculty on university campuses might actually change their curricula presentations to students based on the possibility students would be carrying guns.
Yes, we asked several questions about, how often in your class do you teach controversial topics or topics that might be perceived as offensive? I think this was basically trying to get an idea of how likely a situation might arise where a student would develop animosity toward a professor or have some sort of feelings of wanting to get revenge on them.
Based on the type of material the professor was presenting,
right,
either
or
whether the student agreed or disagreed.
Exactly, because I try not to do that, but a lot of professors are very adamant in defending their position on social issues. As a sociology professor, I like to try and bring out both sides, because sometimes it can inhibit the students that disagree with the professor. If they think that the professor feels too strongly about it, they're not going to be able to compete maybe with that professor. So
you bring out both sides and you let the student make the decision based on their own.
Right. So the assumption is that if a professor knows there's handguns concealed in their students, that it will to some degree inhibit them from teaching the class the way they feel it will maximize the learning.
And there might even be a shutdown of class discussion among students that might have radically different views, perhaps.
That's an interesting point. I don't know that I've ever realized how students might also have those feelings, and maybe if there's a student that says, well, that looks like the kind of person that would carry a gun, I don't know if I want to stand up and debate this student or say something that contradicts their view. So it really does. It just, a lot of professors feel like it just creates a hostile atmosphere to open discussion and people really saying what they think.
Well, and something that occurred to me, Dr. Brinker, concerned faculty and grading. Faculty members have to deal with giving grades for students that the student may not agree with or may not have related to. And this is a problem as well. I mean, this faculty member has to consider the outcome of that grade that the student has earned.
That's a good point, and I mean, and I think I can remember reading anecdotal evidences of students that had failed a course they felt unfairly and had done something to try and get revenge. So it really is a concern. And
this could raise the bar exceedingly higher if the situation were involving firearms.
Easily, because I don't think many of the concerns before were that you would be assaulted with a weapon. So absolutely.
We have a couple of minutes left in this presentation. Any overall final thoughts that you'd like to bring to us on this survey that the Docking Institute did, Dr. Brinker?
Well, other than to just say that, as I said, we did a similar student survey, and the results were very similar. The students were slightly less opposed to guns overall than the faculty. But the way the support for the different schools for the faculty kind of mirrored the same thing in the students. So, what I would like to see, this is really the first time since I've been teaching in Kansas that I saw the university students of Kansas actually get excited about law and actually done something proactive to try and assert their feelings on a political issue. So nothing would make me happier than to see this be sort of a instigate a drive for students to become more politically involved, get registered to vote, get out there and vote, campaign for student or for candidates that are going to support the laws that you want, that you feel are best for you. And because I think this is largely looked at as a bad thing, this gun policy. But in my life I've found out that a lot of times something bad turns out to be something really good. So if it encourages the students to become more politically active, this is a good thing.
Because these laws that are being passed right now in the Kansas legislature are directly affecting these students.
Exactly. I mean, as far as I know, you cannot conceal carry in the Capitol building or in the legislature. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
But and I know, politicians have, some of their constituents get angry with the decisions that they make or the things that they say. So I think they understand well how we feel, why they're not sharing that protection of exempting us from firearms in our environment. I don't know.
Fascinating study, Dr. Gary Brinker. We'll look forward to other works from the Docking Institute of Public Affairs. From Custer Hall on the campus of Fort Hays State University with Dr. Gary Brinker, Director of the Docking Institute, our Community Connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hays and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
And the Angel Care nurse comes to see me once a week.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
Angel Care has helped to stay home.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.